Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Glow podcast. I am here today with a very exciting guest. I have Freddie. And so, before we get into that, if you are new here, this is the Glow podcast, and we are tailored marketing and we help skincare brands grow and increase their revenue. So, if you're interested, drop a comment below. Freddie, I am so excited to have you here today and talk all things men's skincare and kind of learn more about you and your business. So if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and give an introduction so the audience kind of knows who you are.
Thank you, Taylor. No, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm Freddie Sheridan, and I'm founder of the Ycode. Essentially, my background has been in the beauty industry for a long time. And originally, I started designing retail stores for luxury and premium brands. And then being in that space has kind of taken me on a bit of a tangent more recently into specializing in men's skincare.
Yeah, no, that's super, super awesome. And so I'm so interested because it is obviously, more of a niche market than just doing skincare. So, what originally got you interested in specifically men's skincare?
Yeah, so I think the way that we originally kind of got so interested in it was because when we designed retail stores, rather than just diving straight into the look and feel of the space, we go through a kind of very deep, in-depth strategy process, and that essentially involves looking at the brand that we're working with, the products that they kind of offer, and then really kind of looking at an in-depth way into their audience, and creating the best possible scenario in which those three things will connect. And the first part of that strategy process involves doing a lot of research and kind of digging into the market behind the brand. And when we were kind of exploring lots of different opportunities in the beauty sector, we kept being pulled back into the men's skincare space, and it was kind of at the time kind of labeled as one of the biggest potential growth sectors in the market. But what was commonly being called out was that there was a big gap between the potential of that area and how many men were actually actively adopting it. So I think more recently, we've seen a lot more men's skincare brands kind of on the market, and obviously we know that men are more actively kind of adopting the products now, which is great. I think that we can comfortably say from statistics that well over 50% of men are using at least one skincare product in their routine. And yeah, so it's kind of something that we largely focused on. And I think the realization that we had at the time when we were first looking at it was that basically the reason that there wasn't quite this kind of adoption that we expected there to be was because essentially most men's skincare products that were available at the time weren't really men's skincare products at all. They were essentially, heavily based on women's alternatives. And so we kind of really started diving into exploring, what that was all about. And quite quickly, what you realize is that men's skin is actually incredibly different to women's skin. And, not only that, but also the outcomes that we want and also the issues that we face, are quite different too. So with that, you see quite quickly that we actually need to develop something that really does cater to men's, biological needs as well as their kind of, more instinctive requirements as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. That makes sense. And you talked a little bit too about how obviously men and women are very different, and we notice that in a lot of aspects of our lives. But for some reason, with skin, we've almost kind of like, with skin and skincare, we've almost kind of forgotten that. And so, what are some of those differences that you've talked about with their needs and like what they're looking for in a product, and then also the biological aspect of that as well?
I think when it comes to needs, let's take, for instance, the eyes, as you know, that's one of the kind of areas that we focused on with our initial, hero product. And when it comes to women's requirements, I think in the women's industry, we all know kind of really clearly how important the eyes are. And when it comes to kind of refining them and making them a focal point, that's a really important part of, either a woman's kind of skincare or cosmetic regime. And with that, what normally happens is that you're kind of, I'd say, kind of enhancing the eye area. So often you're either kind of brightening it significantly so that it draws people in, or kind of the other thing that often women will do is intensify their eye area so that it really draws in, kind of attention from other people, which is obviously a very ineffective thing to do. But I think when it comes to men, a lot of us don't realize how important that area is. So when we're designing products for men, we want to cater to the needs that they have. So that they're things like inflammation and dark circles, which obviously make us look tired and run down. But also, instead of wanting a visual difference or a step forward, we want to create an incredibly subtle finish so that it kind of you see the benefits from the products, but it doesn't actually look like you're wearing anything at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how our needs and the outcomes are slightly different. And then when it comes to the actual biology itself, it often surprises people just how different, men's skin is. First of all, it's up to 25% thicker than women's skin. As a result of having a lot more testosterone in our bodies, we have a higher sebum production, which means that essentially we have twice as much oil content in our skin. And so even though our skin's a lot oilier, it can also be a lot more dehydrated at the same time. So it sounds like those two things would
Yeah.
be linked, but actually they're not. pH levels, men's skin have a lower pH, so it's more acidic. So some of the active ingredients in products don't work quite as well in an acidic environment. So we have to tailor kind of ingredients to make sure that they work with more acidic skin. There's things like texture and elasticity. So men's skin's rougher and it contains more elastin. And then, yeah, really I think one of the most important ones for me is actually the collagen content. So not a lot of people realize that actually, collagen is important in men's and women's skin. Men start losing skin collagen in their early 20s. And it kind of declines consistently after 30, but women tend to hold on to a lot of the collagen in their skin until they hit kind of like their mid 50s, for instance. So if you look at someone, in their kind of late 30s or early 40s, if you look at a man and a woman, the collagen content in our skin is significantly different. So to me, something like that makes it incredibly obvious that you would actually need to tailor a product to cater to how men's skin would be. The idea of kind of borrowing your other half skincare products, it just doesn't cut it in terms of really getting the best out of the skin. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. Definitely. I mean, from what you've talked about, like it's very, very different, obviously, for men and women, and we're looking for different things. We have different needs as well. And so you all have your eye serum product that's kind of the start to the line. And so how is this kind of catering to those needs for
Yeah, so I think eyes are particularly important, for guys because women's skin is pretty consistent the whole way around their face. But guys have these three distinctive zones of their face. So the bottom is obviously heavily impacted by facial hair. And then, at the top region of our face, we struggle with things like hair loss and all that kind of stuff, which has a bit of an impact. So those two areas actually really heavily frame the eyes for guys, which means that even more so than women, that area can make a massive difference when it comes to either looking your best or looking like you're having a slightly off day.
yeah.
So things that I think, like I said before, I think women are very aware of the issues that happen around the eyes, but I think a lot of men will be able to look at, a brother or a friend and say, okay, I can tell that he's having a bit of an off day, but often they can't actually call out like why that is and how much of a role the eyes are playing, in that appearance. So the first thing is kind of like dark circles when we're tired and run down. And then puffiness and inflammation is a massive issue for guys because of that higher sebum content. We actually struggle with inflammation more than women do. So that's obviously, a really kind of um, major issue for us. And then, with ongoing kind of lack of caring for those things, we start to see kind of, dark circles, start to see fine lines and wrinkles appearing in that area, which obviously emphasizes those issues even more. And so our eye cream is essentially designed to cater to all of those things. It reduces dark circles, it targets puffiness and inflammation. Obviously, it supports the collagen production, as we talked about earlier. It's boosting hydration, it's improving texture and tone, and it's also catering to different skin tones in different ways. So it's got actually the best way that we could possibly find to reduce dark circles effectively was to include like a reflective ingredient that basically bounces enough light off the eye area so that you really do mask those kind of dark circles as quickly as possible. But it allows enough visibility so that you get an incredibly subtle outcome. And in order to make sure that we didn't see any kind of lightening in those areas, the tone of those kind of particles is actually adapted to work particularly well with different skin tones. But also, in terms of the way that we're catering to different skin tones, we actually go a bit deeper than that as well. So we're kind of tailoring active ingredients in our different formulas to make sure that they cater to the fact that, dark skin, for instance, can be more dehydrated, or light skin, for instance, can struggle with, redness and kind of issues like that. So we're actually making sure that we're not just catering to men's skin, we're also leaning into kind of really helping people depending on the melanin content of their skin as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I feel like you brought up such a good point too with just the awareness aspect. Women obviously like were kind of trained almost to like recognize these things about ourselves. Like if you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you're like, "Ooh, like I'm kind of puffy today. Like maybe I didn't sleep well last night, or maybe I didn't drink enough water yesterday." But for men, it's almost a little bit different. They may not be able to have that same level of awareness as women do with these subtle changes with kind of their face based off of, different things that can happen. So, how are you kind of helping with like men having maybe like a little bit more awareness with these changes for their skin? Like how are you kind of educating, I guess, in a way so that they are recognizing these differences?
No, I think it's a really important question because, like I said, I think, we always knew deep down that the eyes was the most important place for us to start because of the things that we've already discussed today. And I think, in all honesty, I think we probably realized, we probably assumed that a lot of men would realize that they had these issues and be proactively looking for a solution to them. And obviously, a lot of men do, but I think the vast majority of men, like you say, just don't even realize that this is the kind of area of the face that they really need to focus on. So I think one of our biggest learnings has definitely been stepping back and trying to educate men as to why it's so important and what we can do to address these issues, basically. And I think in doing that, we're looking to kind of really educate people, not just about the issues, but also kind of explain why the eyes are so important. They're one of the
Yeah.
most expressive parts of the human body. Humans instinctively read them for cues, even if we don't consciously realize what we're doing. And when you meet someone, you look at their eyes first. Obviously, they're a focal point of the face. And so you naturally look at them when you're talking to someone. But also, the skin around those eyes is incredibly thin and sensitive as well. So it often shows signs of kind of poor sleep or stress or dehydration or aging, for instance. So it needs looking after. And also, like we're kind of discussing today, that they really reflect kind of how you're feeling on the inside. So if you're run down and having an off day, that's where you'll see it first, which obviously means that if you have a product that can address those issues, it can be one of the most beneficial things for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree with you. And so, right now, obviously, you're talking about kind of the education that you all are doing. So, where are you primarily focused on educating people? Is that primarily on social media, or kind of how are you using your marketing to your advantage with the education and also bringing product awareness as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you say, social media is probably the place that we're doing that most. And I think that our Instagram's probably been through various iterations, of what we're kind of focusing on in that space. But I think now that we're really kind of dialing back and just focusing on awareness about what makes the eyes so important, awareness about what makes skin so different, and then kind of really kind of explaining what it is about our products that caters to men's skin, and obviously how our hero product caters to eyes particularly well. You'll often see deeper education in our newsletter, for instance,
Okay.
which I think is a really important vessel for us. And being here today, with opportunities like this is also, we see it as a great opportunity too.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's so important too, especially like you said, because a lot of women are more aware of it, but men right now, it's like kind of getting the word out about this stuff and getting in contact with places really too also where they like trust, because
Yeah.
that's so important. And so, can you talk a little bit about the goals with the line? Obviously, right now we're focused on primarily the eyes, but are there any other things on the horizon for the product line?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, you're asking in terms of additional SKUs and products, for instance, or. where it's going to
Yeah.
turn up. Yeah.
Any goals for the business like over the next year or so with either new products or continuing to grow this one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely, towards the end of the year, we're definitely going to be releasing more products. So obviously, like we discussed, we started with the eyes, that being an incredibly important area. But, we know general moisture is a really important thing. So towards the end of the year, we're going to be releasing a kind of mattifying moisturizer, which really kind of caters to all the qualities that we've talked about today, specifically for men's, and also gives a really nice mattifying effect, which helps balance out that high sebum content that we discussed. And we're also going to have um, a kind of daily hydrating serum as well that goes side by side with that moisturizer. So I think the eye serum could be considered like a specialist product, even though often when people start to use it, they really do see the value of using it every day. But we also want to come back now to kind of like your everyday essentials that we know a lot of guys are already using, and demonstrate the value of kind of how much more of an impact they can make when they really are tailored to work with men's skin. So that's a big part of our plan. And then in terms of other development, I think, the main thing for us is definitely kind of focusing on our e-commerce and really kind of making sure that we're doing everything we can to reach as many people as possible, both in terms of raising awareness and also, really kind of helping connect people with products that can help them. But also, making sure that we're turning up in places where men are already breaking their routines to kind of hang out, basically. I think knowing retail really well, we kind of know that there's a big section of the kind of male, either current or potential skincare users who might not be comfortable walking into a department store context, for instance, and opening up about their skincare concerns and being really open to kind of learning and understanding what products are out there for them. So we want to make sure that we're thinking differently when it comes to meeting men where they are. So it could be, kind of in their gym spaces, it could be in their hotel rooms, it could be in kind of independent retailers that they already get trust for things like footwear or fashion accessories. So really thinking differently about where we show up for them, which I think is a really important part of it. And on top of that, things like your barber shop, so where you might go for a haircut, or a lot of guys now are using day spas, for instance. So we make sure that we meet them in those spaces and really demonstrate alongside the other treatments, like how much of an impact these products can have for them, either in that context or when they use them on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I think that that's super awesome too, because I feel like, yeah, a lot of guys maybe aren't going to Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom on a regular basis, but like they're not missing their barber appointment every, month or 3 weeks or
Yeah,
however often they're going. So it's like, and also their barber too, if they have a product that's already somebody that they trust and know, and so they're a lot more likely to want to buy something there, or like you said, at the gym, these different places where they're already interacting, rather than having to go somewhere that's completely like out of their comfort zone and out
mm,
of their routine, to talk to somebody about skincare. They can just get it with somebody they already know, like, and trust.
definitely. And also, what's really exciting for us is, though, even though we've got a lot of work to do in terms of raising awareness for the end customer, often when we're having conversations with people who are working in barbershops, who are actually doing the hairdressing, for instance, like they instantly get, they're in this world, so they instantly understand the value that the products that we're creating have. So they'll be incredibly important kind of ambassadors when it comes to recommending these things, and kind of helping people to realize why they're so important, which is obviously great for us too. And in all honesty, I do think there is a role that the department store can play, for a guy, especially when, we're shopping with our other halves, for instance, and we're in that space and we're kind of, our minds are wandering because there's not much that we're connecting with personally. I think there's a real opportunity to have a kind of focal point that men can kind of lean towards and enjoy and experience,
Yeah.
but also the other thing that takes me towards is like the importance that women play in this kind of, situation as well, because really we know that, we want to really kind of aim and focus on raising awareness and kind of bringing men on board with the brand, but we also really think there's a massive opportunity here for kind of engaging women as well and saying, look, you guys actually have much, more of an understanding because of the culture and the way that you use these products, and you know what the issues are, and you can often look at your brother or best friend or husband or whoever it might be and say, I can see why it looks like you're having a bad day. So if there are products that can then help them with these things, then I think, women's role in helping men connect with these products is actually really important too. So, making sure that we're also turning up in places where they are kind of shopping for products like this and also open to discovering new things is a really important opportunity too.
Yeah, well, I think that's such a good point too, because women are a little bit more educated on it, like with this particular topic with skincare and stuff. And it's like, if they're looking and they see, oh, like this like specifically designed for men's skincare, and like they're like, oh, like this would be great for my brother, like let me introduce him to it, or this would be great for my husband or my boyfriend. And so I think that that's a really, really good point too. And also, you're kind of talking to an audience that maybe is more educated too. So it's
Mm.
almost a little bit easier because it's like, okay, these people, they already get it. Like, we don't have to really educate them maybe as much. You still have to educate them like on the differences with the men and the women's skincare, but some women too might already understand that as well too. So that's really cool. I think that that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so right
Just on
now,
just on that
go
point,
ahead.
Taylor, just before we move on too quickly, I think the other thing that is really important about this conversation that we're having now is that obviously we're talking a lot about raising awareness, and we're talking about, kind of telling people about key opportunities that there are to address issues with the eyes. But I think the exciting thing with this product is that we kind of realized when it comes to men's skincare that the whole psychology of skincare products doesn't really work with,
Yeah.
because if I say to the average guy, let use this product twice a day every day for 3 months and suddenly you'll see some results, kind of it's an instant kind of turn off, because it's like, God, I want something that works instantly. So
Yeah.
that's what we've actually done, in terms of this reflective ingredient that I told you about, and the really strong actives that we have in there that really address kind of inflammation quite quickly. So when you put the product on, you instantly see the reduction of dark circles, or removal of dark circles. If you leave it for 1 to 3 minutes, then you'll see inflammation is significantly reduced. And then obviously, as a result of being motivated by those two things to use it on a regular basis, you'll see, fine lines and wrinkles will be addressed relatively quickly over time. So all we have to do really is get to the point where we get a guy to put this product on under one eye, look in the mirror and say, okay, this is my normal eye and this is the one that I've applied the product to. And either instantly, like I said, or within a very, very, very small amount of time, like 1 to 3 minutes, you'll see a significant difference in the eye that has the product on it versus the other one. And as soon as we do that, guys are just instantly converted and can see the benefit of using the product on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that's really cool too, because like I feel like, yeah, the instant gratification of it, of like, okay, I'm getting something from this immediately, rather than for a lot of stuff you do have to wait, like 3 months, like, or however long to see the results from using the product. And especially, I think it's really cool that you've kind of seen that psychological part specifically for men. I mean, women too. If somebody tells me something's going to work immediately, I'm like, okay, like that sounds great. You're like, okay, like I'm going to be able to look in the mirror and notice an immediate difference. And when you do see that with products that you use, it it is very satisfying.
No, for sure, absolutely, really important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so right now, where are you all primarily selling the product? Is it primarily e-commerce?
Yeah, so primarily e-commerce, and we're starting to show up in some great retailers. We're off to New York at the end of the week to launch in CO Bigelow in New York, which is a really important collaboration for us, being America's oldest apothecary, and in such a key predominant position in New York City, which is great. We're already sold at Formula Fig at their branch in LA, which is really exciting for us. And then in London as well, we're on Chiltern Street at a retailer called TWC, which is kind of like, one of those independent men's boutiques that we talked about. Uncrate.com already features us, which is really exciting too, for us to be kind of in a wholesale environment, on such a great platform like that. And, we really are kind of working proactively on finalizing, more and more retail partnerships as we speak, which will mean that we're kind of showing up in lots of different contexts,
Yeah.
really, genuinely becoming easily accessible for lots of men.
Yeah, no, that's super, super awesome. Awesome. So I would love for you to tell listeners how they can kind of learn more about you, the Ycode, and your mission online, on social media, all of those things. I'll also include it in the show notes for easy access, but if you want to tell everybody, that would be great.
No, for sure, that'd be brilliant. I think, our website's obviously a great resource, and you'll see that kind of constantly improving and developing as we learn more about the way that men interact with it. And we have our blog, which is the journal, which is more kind of education and awareness about what makes men's skin different and why particular products are so important for them. And our social, obviously, the Instagram is where we put most of our energy into. So you'll see that as a great resource as well for kind of helping to understand what makes skin so different and unique. And yeah, that's kind of mainly it for now. And like I said, really hopefully appear on more opportunities like this, due to kind people like yourself.
Yeah, of course. Well, awesome. Well, I will include everything in the show notes for all of the listeners. And thank you so, so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I loved the insights that you've shared kind of about the differences between men and women with skincare. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Taylor. Really appreciate you having me.
Yes, bye.